Hello, this is Catherine of Fit Armadillo, the fitness company that lets you enjoy your fitness at your place and your pace. And I'm here today because it is Tighten and Tone Tuesday. It's spring and a lot of my fans and clients have been contacting me with questions about starting a running routine. And this makes me really excited because running is my personal favorite form of fitness, and I love helping clients and fans like you get started with the routine. The very first thing you want to do if you're starting a running routine is to make sure you have the proper footwear. So if you haven't watched my video about buying running shoes yet, I invite you to check that out through this link here. The topic I'm going to talk with you about today is carbo loading. If you've ever run a race or had friends that have gotten into running, you might hear them talk about carbo loading, and you might wonder, what is carbo loading? Do I need to do it if I'm going to run a race? And that's what we're going to talk about today. The whole principle of carbo loading, which stands for carbohydrate loading, comes from some basic principles of biology. So think back to biology class. If you were in my biology class when I was a teacher, I know that you learned this. If not, I think you probably learned it, but we'll go back and brush up on our bio facts to get you back on track. In biology, we talk about the process of cell respiration, the process that your body uses to convert chemical energy, which in cell respiration is glucose, into kinetic energy, the energy of movement, so doing activities like running, and that fuel is the form of energy called ATP. How does cell respiration relate to all this? Why am I reviewing it anyways? Maybe I miss being in my biology classroom, but the whole key there is glucose, and glucose is the fuel source that our body can most quickly convert into energy. So you've probably seen this if you've eaten a pixie stick or a really sugary soda. You're intaking simple sugars, most of which are usually glucose, and you have a lot of energy really quickly. If you're running, you want to have as much quick energy available for you to use as possible because you need a lot of energy to keep that running going. So the body focuses on glucose as a primary fuel source to give it energy during running workouts, and glucose is a carbohydrate. So the idea behind carbohydrate loading is that we're going to eat a lot of carbohydrates, and then our body is going to store them so that we have a lot of carbohydrates to use later when we go and run. Getting back to that biology classroom again, when you eat your simple sugars as glucose, they can be used as energy right away, or they can be stored as this form of carbohydrate called glycogen, which is a molecule that your body makes by linking together small glucose molecules. And when it needs that glucose later on, it can break those apart. So eating a big pasta meal, the idea behind that is we're trying to increase our glycogen stores so we can access them later, turn them into glucose, and have quick energy to use to fuel our run. It's all based on some basic principles that we learned back in biology. But as we all know, when we get into the human body and different things that are happening there, sometimes those basic principles get to be a lot more complicated. And this is what happens with carb loading. The idea that athletes should do carb loading or eat a lot of carbohydrates before an event started from a Scandinavian study that was completed in the 1960s. It showed that if you didn't eat any carbohydrates for a few days and then ate some carbohydrates right before an event, that you would have super carbohydrate stores and store a lot more carbs than you normally would. And that's where the idea started from. The problem with that study is that it was done on non-athletes. So the way that that study was carried out doesn't really work in athletes. That study was expanded on in the 2000s, and some Australians figured out that you can maximize your carbohydrate stores by eating 10 grams of carbohydrate per 10 kilograms of your body weight in the day before your event. This sounds great. We have an exact number of carbs we need to eat for our personal bodies, and we can get maximum carbohydrate storage. And it's just another thing that sounds really great, but when we put it into practice, it's not that great. If you're not used to thinking about food in grams and your body weight in kilograms, It might not be obvious at first, but that amount of carbs in bowls of pasta is about 10 plates of pasta. So a lot more than just that one spaghetti dinner that you have the night before, even if you have 2 plates, and a lot more than you would probably comfortably eat, even if you ate pasta for breakfast, lunch, and dinner that day, and were also from Italy. So that study allowed us to see how to get those maximum carbohydrates, but it also showed us that getting that maximum number is really not practical for a normal person. To make matters even worse, let's say you practiced eating those 10 plates of pasta and did that the day before your race. There's another problem. For every gram of carbohydrate that you eat, your body retains 4 grams of water. So not only will you probably actually be uncomfortable after eating all that pasta, but you're also going to have an increase in your weight before your running event, and that'll feel pretty uncomfortable for you as well. So even more evidence for us to not eat tons and tons of pasta and maximize our carbohydrate load before a race. Another reason why eating tons of carbs the day before your race is not that important is that for a lot of the studies that they did on endurance athletes where they had athletes carbo load or not carbo load, in order to control these studies, they did not allow the athletes to have carbohydrate snacks, so things like gels that you might see at races, during their distance event. When runners are allowed to have those performance fuels during a race, the benefit of that far outweighs any benefit that they would get from carbo loading the night before. Another thing to factor in when you're trying to practice carbo loading before a race is that even if you do have that plate of pasta the night before, your body still needs glucose to fuel your brain and other basic functions of your nervous system while you're sleeping. So about half of that glycogen that you stored after eating that pasta actually is used over the course of the night. So what's even more important than just eating that pasta the night before becomes eating a simple carbohydrate snack 3 to 4 hours before your race. These would be things like a bagel, a banana, something very simple that you could digest easily before your run that's high in carbohydrates. So what does this all mean? Should you not go to that pasta dinner the night before the race with all of your friends and family who are running with you? Not exactly. Carbo loading does help, but what's actually more important is the general food that you're eating the day before the race, and then what you're eating the morning before your race and during your run if you're participating in an event that's lasting more than 90 minutes. So let's start with the day before your race. The day before your race, you're going to go against every other thing you've heard about for nutrition and eating healthy, and you're going to focus on eating simple carbohydrates. So that includes your pasta dinner the night before. If it's plain pasta, not whole wheat this time, save that for after the race. This includes potatoes without the skin. It includes rice. It includes white bread. Again, another no-no at all other times, but something good to have before your race. And fruits are fine as long as they don't have the skin. All these foods are going to help you increase your carbohydrates that you have stored, and they'll also prevent any possible digestive issues that you might have the day of the race if you ate too many complex carbs, fats, or a lot of proteins before. Next is your nutrition for the day of the race. About 3 to 4 hours before you run, you want to have, again, some simple carbohydrates. And this is going to help you replenish the carbohydrate stores that you lost overnight while you were dreaming about how you're going to have an awesome race. If you're not running for 90 minutes or longer, at this point you would just go off and run your awesome race. But if you are running 90 minutes or longer, you want to try to have some sports performance gels. These are all carbohydrate-based products. My favorite is GOO, but you can try out different ones during your training runs and see what works best for you. And I can tell you from experience, as a runner who's run long races without my GOO and without having any gels because I thought that they were kind of stupid, and then running races when I did have those gels and actually fueled my body properly, it will make a world of difference. You will have better time, you'll feel a lot better during and after the race. So definitely check that out and practice using them during your training runs It'll really help your performance, I can tell you from personal experience, as I said, but also from studies that have been done on sports nutrition and endurance athletes. Now that you've watched this video, I hope you know what carbo loading is, where we got the idea, what science is based in, and how going from that basic science to the world of sports and seeing this all in practice reveals some subtleties about what you actually want to do. Now before I leave you, I just want to show you a little video about how not to carbo load, and I want you to show me that you've learned all these tips well by, after you watch the clip, leaving me some comments about what went wrong here and how you would carbo load or fuel your race in the proper way so that you get these ideas out of the video and into your head and are able to put them to use.
Fettuccine Alfredo. Time to carbo load. Just remember,
leave me a comment. What is Michael Scott doing wrong, and what can you tell him about how to do it right so that he knows the facts and that you know the facts and have an awesome race. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope that you enjoyed this video and learned something about carbo loading and how to do it properly. If you found it helpful, I would love for you to share it with your family, friends, and social media followers so we can spread the word. And I hope you have a great workout and an awesome week, and I can't wait to see you next week.